It says November 15th, you said your car was ready. You paid $2,600 in cash.
Yes.
And that was for what?
The rear end.
Okay. And then something else happened.
No, the same thing. So when I paid the 26, the same thing he's supposed to fix, it went out again. He misdiagnosed it, but he tried to recharge me. That's where all the confusion came in when I got mad. Like, how you?
But you're saying an additional $3,400. Where's the 34? What is that for?
He tried to charge me the 26 for the rear end and $800 more because he had to weld something.
Why was that the case? If
So
you said
he paid me $2,000.96 to rebuild the rear end. When he took it out of there and the rear end blew up, I didn't notice that there was something wrong with it, so I quoted him $2,600. But as we were working on the car, I noticed that what we had done to the car, we had missed something. So when he came in, I did the whole $2,600. I told him, you know, we missed something on the rear end. The whole $2,600 rebuilding the whole rear end is all at no charge to you.
So he would have paid that regardless if you had just caught it the first time around. This wasn't something that he had to pay out of pocket because of something you did.
No, the second time it was all done at no charge. And when we were working on it, he had custom disc brakes put on it. And I called him and I said, look, this has custom pads on here. If you want me to reinstall these, I'm going to have someone come down and cut them and weld them on. If you'd like them, it's going to be a few $100s to put your disc brakes back on. And he said, no, I don't want to spend the money. Just put the rear end in as it is.
Why didn't you catch from the start, if you were going over the entire car, why didn't you catch that there was something wrong with his transmission?
The rear end had a really slight bend in it that you couldn't see. But when we started to put it back together, I noticed when I went to put the axle in that the axle wasn't going in the spider gear spine.
I don't even know what any of that means. I'm trying to understand. Transmission is a pretty common issue. Isn't that something that you catch? That's not something that you need to forensically look for. Isn't that something that you just...
So, I mean, I've been doing it for 50 years. We put 100 rear ends together in cars, and everything looked okay when we did the complete rebuild on it, or I would have just told him he needed a rear end in the very beginning. But when it did not work and he had the same problem, that's when I said I'll replace everything for free for him.
Sorry?
He said he test drove my vehicle, and he told me when I took my vehicle, everything was good. Then when the rear end went out, when he misdiagnosed it, that's what caused my transmission to lock up. The rear end and the transmission works together. So when the car goes, the transmission changes the gears and the rear end goes. So when the rear end locked up, it locked up my transmission.
So he unlocks it, whatever. I don't know if that's correct.
You have to get it rebuilt. It's bad now. All it's doing is leaking all the transmission fluid. Like, it's just jammed up. It's bad.
Sir, does he have any validity in what he's saying?
So the transmission goes back to the initial time when he brought it in and he blew up the rear end and blew the parts out of the transmission. I told him I could put the parts back in the transmission, but there was no warranty whatsoever on the transmission because it had 38 years old on the car and I couldn't see inside the transmission. But when he blew the parts out of it, obviously there was a lot of damage done inside the transmission. We put the parts back in and the transmission did go into gear and it did shift.
Okay. And this car, did it break?
Well, you can see the picture in the exhibit
just see a bunch of tools on the floor.
He picked it up and he threw it over on the side and he bent the wheels on the cart and the cart wouldn't even stand up anymore. It just completely destroyed it. He's pretty strong because that's like a 600-pound cart and he lifted it up and threw it down on the ground.
You quoted $800 for the cart.
For the cart, and then it's about 3 hours to take everything off of the cart.
How does that equal $500 more?
$150 an hour to do all the labor on changing all the parts over on the cart.
Well, what do you think it took him to go back and forth to your shop? Because, you know, you kept missing stuff.
Okay.
That's time.
No, I get it.
That's valuable. Okay.
Okay. We're going to excuse the parties while we deliberate in this matter. Thank you both very much.
Mr. Rollins, Mr. Babcock, we have deliberated and reached a unanimous verdict. These cases can be tough for us because we're not car experts, we're not mechanics. We have to kind of go by the credibility, and we ultimately found both of you to be credible. But there's a difference in opinion. And so we have to go by the documentary evidence you have and the testimony you gave and figure out where in the middle this whole thing ends up. Mr. Rollins, you have ended up with a transmission issue that is going to cost you $2,500 to repair. Because that issue was brought to the defendant and was not remedied, we believe the defendant is responsible for the $2,500 transmission issue that you're left with. Mr. Babcock, you had proof that the cart was damaged. We're not going to compensate you for your time, but we do believe that you're entitled to a credit for the cost of the cart. So we're granting the counterclaim to the extent of the cost of the replacement cart. So those two produce an offset. And the math on that comes out to $2,500 minus the $800 for the cart. We grant both claims in part, and the ultimate verdict is in your favor, Mr. Rollins, for the amount of $1,700. And we wish you both the best, and we wish you the best getting this vehicle repaired.
Thank you.